Hiya. Thanks for joining me today, Danielle. So you're obviously one of our collaborators on the site.
I am.
You are, and we're really chuffed to have you on there because you've
The pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So we're currently working together on a little project. So this is why I wanted to have you join me for a chat today. But first, I'd just like you to give a little background as to who you are and what you do, if you don't mind.
Of course. So I'm Danielle, better known as Danielle The Happy Medium in the industry. I'm an evidential medium. So for those who maybe don't know what evidential medium means, I'm a person who connects to the other side of life, heaven, spirit world, depending on what terminology or label you sort of want to put on there, and then I allow the spirit world to give me evidence in the shape of maybe names, addresses, memories, depending on what the spirit world wants to talk about. I then relay that to yourself or to somebody who's maybe booked me for a sitting or a larger event of people, which allows me to be able to give them communications for healing, and allow people to realize that nothing separates us, even when we take that transition from this life to the next life. So that's a little bit about my mother of three, two daughters, they're bigger than me these days. And then obviously I have a child in the spirit world. Prior to this, I was a nurse. So I was a mental health nurse for many, many years prior to this. What else is there about her? I'm going to do over 21. That's another one. And I say that to my students quite frequently. I do a lot of online training, COVID, and obviously the pandemic. I used to do a lot of in-house training with people, which is very much what we're going to be doing with the collaboration this year. Yeah. But we do a lot of online training as well. A lot of people ask me, is it a gift? No, it's not a gift. It's an ability. Everybody can do mediumship, but there's different umbrella. I call mediumship an umbrella. A lot of people just understand spirit communications, which is what I've just spoke about there. But inside of mediumship, there's healing, there's trance, there's the psychic ability, which is reading the little oracle field around and about you. There's many different topics, subject matters within mediumship. It's not just always communications. I do communications, share knowledge. I don't really like the word teaching because it's not telling people what to do. I class it as sharing knowledge. I do trance, which is allowing the spirit world to blend with me more and speak through me. I do a little bit of healing. It's not my big forte, but I do some of it. And then I do the psychic parameter. So I've got quite a big umbrella, me, but everybody has an umbrella, everybody. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question a little bit for you there.
That more than, and I've just learned an awful lot about you.
A lot of people do. A lot of people don't recognize. Yeah.
There's about 15 things that I could ask you about in that.
Yeah.
But I'm aware, obviously, that your time's precious. You're a busy woman, so I'm not.
I am a busy woman. Yeah.
You are a busy woman. But what I'd like to talk about, so what interests me is your take on it, that it is for everyone and it's something that can be shared, because not just one of the premises of our site is people who are, we look for collaborators who are willing to sort of share with other people who maybe don't have much knowledge on subjects, because that's our passion, is reaching people who are, a lot of people are waking up to these ways of life or self-healing or self-improvement, self-betterment. And that's one thing that I'm really drawn to with you, is how you believe not in keeping things exclusive and keep making I'll be the medium so you can pay me to do that. You genuinely want people to have these experiences themselves.
I do, yes.
Yeah, so you genuinely believe that it's something that is for everybody and people can be taught given the right tools from yourself. Yeah.
I'm a big believer, like I say to my students, I want my students to be better than me, and I'm quite humble that way, because obviously I can't do mediumship forever. As much as my ability will be there forever, my age, my body will not allow that, if that makes sense. So I'm always interested in sharing knowledge for the next generation, who will then go on to produce that evidence that life does continue after life. And so that I always have a statement to my students: I want you to be better than me, because I need that, because then they go on to the next generation and the next generation. So we're constantly sharing that knowledge, even when I'm long gone and I'm not here. I said to my students, I'm going to come back and haunt you, and they'll laugh.
At least they'll be able to chat to you.
I say it to them all the time, I'm going to come back and haunt you, and they're like, good, yeah, all the time. I say it to them all the time.
But I mean, there's always a lot of suspicion surrounding it, isn't there?
Yeah.
There is, like, and you know, that's obvious. We understand why that is. But I genuinely sort of feel like there's, like, obviously one of my interests is sort of where we're going, and like astrology and stuff like that. And a lot of the people I've been listening to, people like Brasher Goldsmith and Pam Gregory, you know, they're sort of saying that it's going to be a part of this new earth is interdimensional sort of communication. So it's very now, isn't it? It's something, you know, they talk that, you know, we are all going to be asked to open ourselves up to the fact that, you know, there's other realms, there's other, you know, things that we can't see, and, you know, with our, you know, usual vision. So it's something, I do believe that it's something that can be a great self-development, you know what I mean? A part of your own self-development, another string to your bow, another way to cope with your life, because, you know, grief happens to us all, doesn't it? You know, we've all lost people.
Yeah. For me, you know, I can never really sort of, it's a thing I never discuss other people or where their perception is or where their journey is, because everybody's on their own journey. And I'm a big believer in that. Do I believe the journey's all of one, of the pure consciousness? Yes, of course. But everybody's journey is different, and everybody's going to see it differently, because every aspect and every perception sees it through their own reality of their lens. Depends, like what you were talking about with this healing journey, and that's working for the spirit world does. And I think even if you're not even working with them as in the bigger parameters that I am, there will always be a level of development, a self-aware development. Let me tell you a little bit. So prior to obviously me doing this journey, I was quite an angry individual. I was very took things very, very personally. You know, I thought everything was a personal attack. You know, I could never quite see somebody else's point of view, if you can appreciate that. Or if I did see somebody else's point of view, I had an opinion on that, or I would, that's not right, my opinion is right. And this is where I was saying to you, I never discuss anybody else, because everybody's perception of everybody's reality is important, and everybody needs to see that. And so for me, when I started on this journey, I become very aware of Danielle and what was triggering. And I think a lot of people, the word trigger, so let me just explain that a little bit more so people understand that label. It's where somebody's doing something that irritates you, it gets on your nerves. So for example, they give an opinion and you don't quite like that opinion. You got to ask yourself, well, why don't I like that opinion? Like, why can't I accept that the world has many different opinions, many different skeptics, which is what you were referring to before, people who don't believe in me. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. For me, that's because there's still a need for self-development. There's still an awareness that needs to be brought in there. So I can't judge my fellow man on where my fellow man stands at the moment, because my fellow man is on his own journey. He just maybe isn't as evolved along that journey as I am. So for me, it's important to understand that when you're triggered, why are you triggered? What's causing you to feel that way? Because 90% of the time, with the best of intention, people aren't interested in what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? They're not. Unless the only time people's ever interested in what you're doing is because they can learn something from you. They can gain a level of awareness. You know, we are attracted to people all of the time for many different reasons, many because they've got something to learn from you, or you've got something to learn from them. I think when we start and look at mediumship and development in that area, and that self-development, that spiritual journey, we recognize that everything's an experience. Everything that we do is part of the bigger consciousness of learning for not only you, but the individual, or for the higher side of life, for the whole collective is a full capacity of people. So for me, when you start on this journey, you're going to find that you're going to look at things very differently. You're going to become very self-aware of who you are and where you stand in this world. And I say this to my students all the time, and I'll say this to you, I run an actual self-development program online. When we start to recognize who we are and where we stand, you start to become very present. And what happens is most of us in this day and age, as you were talking about earlier, we're on the rat race, as I call it, where we're chasing the money, we're chasing the status quo, we're trying to be pin thin, you know, we're trying to fit inside of a box that the box doesn't fit, because everybody's box is an individual box. And when we start to realize as an individual and as a collective that we're individuals, we're all working as one, we'll find that you start to become very self-aware of who you are and where you stand within that world. And that's a great sense of peace for me. That's a sense of a realization of who you are as an individual. And really then there's very much that can trigger you, there's very much that can bother you. It becomes a sort of just an allowance, and that's what the spirit world's about. It's accepting who you are for you and knowing that you don't have anything to prove to anybody, if you can understand that. So I hope that answers the question a little bit for you there.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah, I've been looking forward to doing this with you, actually.
Have you?
Yeah, I have.
I don't know what for.
I have, but since I've met you, because I find you fascinating, and, and the way you do something. I will say as well, you've got there's a lot of material on YouTube that people can, go and access, and I'll put a link to your YouTube under the video, because there is, for people to get a sense, you know, of what your offering is when in terms of training people, you know, you're training. But yeah, so we're working on a project which means people could actually get to see you in person, which is a rarity these days for any of us to do things not online, isn't it? You know, and to actually meet up. But yeah, hopefully the world is going to get back to more of that as we go forward.
I hope so. I'm assured it will. It's just going to take time, that's all.
It's going to take time, and it's going to take, you know, I find that, you know, people are still have that trepidation, don't they, even about going to a social event. There's that wasn't there before, because we actually have to think about doing it now, whereas we just did it so unconsciously before. But maybe in the end that's going to be a good thing, that we consciously choose what we do.
More self-aware of who you interact with, what energy you're allowing in and out of your life. You can understand why the pandemic was the way it was. A lot of people don't sort of see it that way, but I see it more in the fact that we've got that time for that self-development. We're watching who's moving in and out of our life, what's toxic, what's not toxic. There, let me reframe that word a bit more, because that could maybe make people go, oh, I don't quite like that. What I mean by toxic is where we know something no longer serves us. It's not helpful to the growth of you as an individual. Skipping back to the YouTube channel, let me just talk a little bit about why I did the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel for me, when I first started out my development, there was very little. People are very, very information's very accessible now, you know, and when I first started out my development, there was nothing like that. There was about 2 places and that was it. So I was very much taught to work with the spirit world and work with them very closely. But I realized as times change, as they do, people wanted more human training. So the YouTube channel was put on there to allow people free access, you know, to knowledge, and to be able to go, oh, well, I resonate with that. I get that. I understand where you're coming from there, without sort of having to pay a small fortune, if you can understand that. So for me, it's a labor of love, the YouTube channel, and I still work on it to this day. I do a lot of live Q&As. I haven't done any recently because I've been so poorly, as you know. I haven't been very well at all. So I've been sort of very much not in a good place, human based there. So it's just unfortunate it happens, and if you get very busy like I do, we sort of run that axe, you know, and sometimes that axe just gets a little too close. So I can appreciate that. And just jumping back to one of your questions before, I say to my students all the time, everybody needs a Danielle in their life. Everybody needs a Danielle in their life. And, you know, I have students who've been with me for years, and they're like, I don't want to go anywhere, Danielle, because, you know, you're just this and you're this. I didn't see any of that. I got to be honest. I didn't see all them things. I'm just a person who just does my thing. I bounce to my arm beat, like, I gotta be honest, and that doesn't always go well with me. Like it doesn't always go well, but I do me and I do me well. Like I like Danielle. Danielle's a good person. She's good.
But it's you're very authentic. I think that's one of the things that I'm drawn to with you. Is just, you know, the way you deliver things. It's straight to the point, and I like that in anybody. You know,
some people might say brutal.
but sometimes you have to be. Do you know what I mean? So you've actually got. So what we're working on in Ibiza is like it's a bit of a hybrid between a retreat and a course, isn't it?
Yes,
You know,
it is,
you're doing, and you've got one going in England as well. What are your dates for the English one?
The one in England is in May, so I've got this one in Ibiza running in March, and I've got one running in May here in the UK, and then I've got one running in November with extra dates being added for 2023 for the UK and obviously Ibiza. The one that we're doing in Ibiza is like you say, a bit of a hybrid. So it's got the mediumistic development in for the new beginner, but also maybe for those who have been doing mediumship for a long time and their mediumship's now become stale, which I hear an awful lot in the industry. That they've been, you know, doing mediumship as said way for so long, and it's now come to a complete standstill and they can't move forward, if you can appreciate that. Mixed in with that is the self-development, which I think for me is a really, really important part of mediumship in order to understand the instrument. That's what the spirit world calls us instrument. If the instrument isn't in a good place, or if the instrument's not working to the best of its ability, the mediumship's always it'll be there, but it'll never be as strong as you want it to be, because ultimately the instrument is the mind, so the fear is what stops the mind from moving completely to a new place. It's a bit like in your own life. Us as humans, we get very comfortable. I mean, I don't do comfortable. I gotta be honest, like I do risk taking. That's what I do. So I'm constantly always taking risks, because by taking risks, you're pushing the mind to look at something from a different perspective, if you can understand that. And mediumship's exactly the same. And unfortunately, as humans, we get very, very comfortable, and we like what we like, and we don't really want to be trying anything that we don't like, because that there, it's like, whoa, that gives me a weird feeling. I don't like that. So it has self-development. And once we start and recognize as mediums and as individuals or instruments, that the self-development is nowhere near as scary as what we think it is, it then sort of what we call limitless. So the mind becomes limitless. So if you understand the spirit world is limitless. The conscious universe is limitless. The possibilities are endless. I kind of get that over to people enough. Do you know what I mean? And mediumship is the same. So the self-development with the hybrid of the course mixed in with it is, you know, it's like two courses for the price of one, which I think is really, really important. And we run a 5-day one, and then we've got a weekend residential out there as well. So we've got actually two going on out there.
Two going on, exactly. And so we've got the weekend, I think. So we've got, it's Wednesday, isn't it? It's Wednesday to Sunday.
That's right. That's a 5-day one.
5 days, and then there's the just Saturday, Sunday. So there's a couple of options. We've also got the super nourishment of Ibiza, because Ibiza is a healing place, and we're up on the east coast just outside of Santa Eulalia, so it's really accessible to some of the local life. You know, when we finish with you, if you've got your energy, you can still go out of an evening and have a little mooch down to Santa Eulalia.
You work hard and you play harder. That's my motto in life, like, I've got to be honest.
Exactly. And talking of nourishment, we've got Wendy from Wendy Love
Life. I love Wendy. She's amazing.
Wendy's like an absolute legend over there, and she's been on the you know, we've got this everyone at the moment is jumping on sort of the vegan and the veggie bandwagon, and she's been on this journey of learning about the nutritional value, the spiritual value of food, the energetic value for 30 years. You know,
I like our food that much. She's coming out of the UK to do all the work out here with me in the UK.
She's incredible. So she's going to be doing all the, you know, she's going to be catering for the whole time. So you'll be breakfast, dinner and tea, absolutely, you know, of just pure goodness and made with love, because, you know, that's her thing as well.
Definitely.
And in a beautiful setting, you know, the sunrise every morning coming up over the sea directly from the house, you know, the house.
Don't be tempting me, I want to be there now, you know.
We're going to be there. So, you know, we're going to be there. So, you know, it's up to other people to come and join us in that idyllic setting.
By all means, come and join us.
Absolutely.
You'll not regret it. Let's put it that way. You'll not regret it. Definitely not. If anything, you want to come back for more.
And I think, you know, there are certain life-changing events, aren't there, for all of us? And I think this feels, to me, going on it myself, it feels like this is going to be one of them. You know, in the combination of the setting, the time, and you know, it being this year of, you know, self-love and self-development, I think it's just a sort of ideal opportunity to begin the spring with that. You know what I mean? Yeah, excellent.
Fantastic. I can't wait, mate. Get me on that plane.
Well, I'll be putting all the
Get me
details
out there.
and I'll put all the details, but the booking details below the video, and the link to your YouTube for people to get a bit of a taster as to what you're all about. Thank you so much for joining me.
No problem. Thank you very much
I know you're busy, but yeah, really nice to chat to you, and I'll speak to you in the week anyway.
You will, no doubt. I've got no doubt. Have a good one, Franky. Yeah.
And you,
Bye,
darling.
darling. Bye.